Let's go Dolphins! The pressure is mounting behind the scenes at the Miami Dolphins headquarters, and I have some crucial updates for you today. We all know that the road to the Super Bowl is paved with smart decisions and forward-thinking moves, and that means not just looking ahead to this season, but already preparing for the 2026 NFL Draft. The Dolphins have a unique advantage heading into the game, and the twist? It has everything to do with how players have left and joined this roster in free agency. Yes, we're diving into the compensatory pick formula, and believe me, there's drama and intrigue here that fans need to know about. Greer should have been gone a long time ago, but unfortunately, he's still in charge. That doesn't mean we can't break down the strategy and highlight what might actually work. For once, I'll tell you everything I found out. But before I go any further, make sure you've hit the like button if you've been a Miami Dolphins fan for over 17 years. If possible, comment something like "The Miami Dolphins live in my heart." And of course, if you want Chris Greer fired, comment "Greer out." Now here's what's happening. Although the 2024 draft just wrapped, the Dolphins are already in a favorable position for the 2026 draft thanks to some strategic, or maybe just lucky, moves during free agency. According to Over the Cap, Miami is projected to receive a fourth-round compensatory pick in 2026, thanks largely to Jevon Holland's departure to the Giants on a contract worth $15.1 million annually. That's not all. The Dolphins also picked up a third-rounder in a trade with Houston, giving them 3 potential day 2 picks next year. However, there's mystery here. The third-rounder could either be the Texans or the Giants pick, which Houston previously acquired, and fans are hoping it's the Giants, since they're more likely to finish with a worse record, giving Miami a higher draft position. Now back to Holland. His contract with New York was a huge factor in the comp pick formula. The Dolphins lost 4 players that qualify under the formula: Jevon Holland, Calais Campbell, Robert Jones, and Emmanuel Ogbah. Meanwhile, they only signed 3 players who qualify: James Daniels, Nick Respane, and Zach Wilson. That imbalance, 4 out, 3 in, works in Miami's favor. Here's the kicker. Ogbah's timing in signing with Jacksonville was the game changer. He inked his deal on April 27th, just 1 day before the cutoff for the comp pick formula. If he had waited even 24 hours, he wouldn't have counted, and Miami might not have received that extra pick. It's wild to think a single date on the calendar could have such a massive impact on draft assets, but here we are. There's speculation that Drew Rosenhaus, who represents both Ogbah and several current Dolphins including Tyreek Hill and Jonnu Smith, may have orchestrated that signing date intentionally to help the Fins. Whether that's true or not, Ogbah's exit just before the deadline gave the Dolphins the final nudge needed to enter the comp pick positive zone. That fourth-rounder for Holland is still projected, of course, and it hinges on him staying healthy and contributing. If he barely plays, that pick could downgrade just like what happened with Christian Wilkins last season. So what does this all mean? For now, Miami holds 9 picks for 2026. They're full set from rounds 1 through 7, plus the projected 4th-round comp pick and the extra 3rd-rounder from Houston. And that's before we even account for a likely Jalen Ramsey trade, which could bring the total to 10. That would give Mike McDaniel and whoever is, still, in charge of roster building, plenty of ammunition to fill what are shaping up to be major roster holes next year. Because here's the harsh truth. Miami is on track to have 25 pending free agents in 2026. That's not a typo. 25. While not all of them are starters or critical depth pieces, several are, and their absence could be seriously felt. Among the most concerning are Jalen Phillips, Jonnu Smith, Kader Kohou, Efita Melifonwu, and Ashton Davis. Those 5 are either current starters or likely to play significant roles this year. Will Miami be able to re-sign all of them? Doubtful. And that's where all this draft capital could come into play. Of course, the comp pick formula is just one piece of the puzzle. Miami's future roster planning looks murky at best. At safety, for instance, the situation is grim. Behind Melifonwu and Davis, both on 1-year deals, you're relying on rookies like Patrick McMorris and Dante Trader Jr., neither of whom is guaranteed a roster spot, let alone future starter status. If McMorris doesn't show something this preseason, he could be cut outright. That leaves you with no proven long-term options at either safety spot heading into 2026. Tight end is another red flag. As of now, Julian Hill is the only tight end on the books for 2026. Not Jonnu Smith, not Pharaoh Brown, not even Tanner Connor. The team passed on drafting Tyler Warren at pick 13, a tight end who was immediately snagged by the Colts. That's a risk that might come back to haunt them. Yes, Kenneth Grant was a solid pick, but that doesn't solve the glaring void at tight end looming just a year from now. And don't forget the cornerback room. Assuming Jalen Ramsey is traded, which all signs suggest is likely, who steps in as the number 1 guy? Kader Kohou might not be around either. Suddenly, Miami could be entering next season with a completely gutted secondary. So the good news about the comp picks is overshadowed by the urgency to hit home runs with those picks. Otherwise, the wheels could come off real fast. All of this brings us back to the importance of draft strategy and how vital it is for the Dolphins to be prepared, not just for this season but for the long term. The 2026 draft might seem far off, but in the NFL, that's just around the corner, especially when your roster is set to lose 25 players. Having potentially 4 picks in the top 100 and possibly 6 in the top 130 could be huge. The question is, will Greer make the right calls, or will Miami continue the pattern of wasted opportunities? Now I want to hear from you, Dolphins fans. Which position do you think is the biggest concern heading into next offseason? Is it safety, cornerback, tight end, or maybe something else entirely? Let me know in the comments, and if you're ready, I'll bring you the second part with even deeper analysis. And when we really sit down and think about the state of this Dolphins roster beyond 2025, the issues start to compound in ways that could put serious pressure on Mike McDaniel if Chris Greer continues to miss in free agency and the draft. We're staring at 3 premium positions, cornerback, safety, and tight end, where the long-term picture is, frankly, alarming. And sure, having extra picks is a plus, but what do extra picks really mean when the general manager making those picks has consistently failed to build depth or find long-term answers at these spots? Let's hone in on the safety position a bit more. Right now, the only 2 safeties under contract for 2026 are Dante Trader Jr. and Patrick McMorris. Both are late-round rookies. Trader Jr. is a 5th-round pick. McMorris was taken in the 6th. This isn't the blueprint for a successful secondary. These are developmental guys, not plug-and-play starters. And worst of all, McMorris might not even make it through this preseason. There's legitimate buzz that if he doesn't show something in training camp, he's out. That leaves 1 safety. 1. Letting Javon Holland walk might have been understandable from a cap perspective, but the Dolphins made 0 effort to establish a succession plan. And with Melifonwo and Davis on 1-year deals, Miami is essentially gambling the entire back end of their defense on Band-Aid solutions. If those guys don't pan out this year, we're not just talking about needing to draft 1 safety. We're talking about potentially needing to find 2 starters in one offseason, and that's a tall order. And then there's the tight end room. Look, Jonnu Smith had a great year, broke franchise records, made big plays, and gave Tua another weapon in the middle of the field. But he's on a 1-year deal. Pharaoh Brown, same deal. Tanner Connor, done. That leaves Julian Hill, and unless he takes a massive leap, he's not a TE1. Miami had a chance to fix this in the draft. Tyler Warren was right there, a dynamic tight end who could have been the answer for the next 5 years. Instead, Greer passed and Indianapolis pounced. It's decisions like these that make fans lose faith. Yes, Kenneth Grant helps the defensive line, but we've been neglecting the tight end spot for years now. This was the moment to change that, and we blew it. Quarterback is another story entirely. Trading Jalen Ramsey seems inevitable at this point. Whether it's for cap relief or locker room dynamics, the writing is on the wall. And if he's gone, who becomes CB1? Kader Kohou? He's solid but also a pending free agent. Cam Smith? He can't even get on the field. There's a real chance Miami enters 2026 with no starting caliber corners under contract. That's a disaster waiting to happen in a pass-heavy league. Yes, you can draft a corner in round 1, but that rookie better be ready from day 1, or the secondary will be Swiss cheese. We've got more exclusive content waiting for you. Go Dolphins!